Hello everyone, it's Greg from Edinburgh Renaissance Fencing Academy here with the next video in our series on Capoferro's early 17th century Italian rapier. Today we're going to talk about the Stoccata thrust, which is the principal attack, the main attack of Capoferro's system. There are other more specialised types of thrust as well, but they're only used in very particular tactical situations, so we won't talk about them today. There are also cuts within the system, but the cuts are more rarely used. They're mostly only for ripostes, and even then, the ripostes are, for the most part, thrusts. So in other words, cuts are attacks of opportunity, but you should be trying to thrust whenever possible. Okay, so the Stoccata. There are actually two variations of the Stoccata, one for the wide measure, misura larga, so it's a long-range attack, and one for the narrow measure, misura stretta, so that's a close-range attack. The core body mechanics are exactly the same between these, with only one difference. At wide measure, you need to make a step to support the attack, and narrow measure there is no step. We'll cover that in a little bit more detail once I show the attacks. I'm going to put my sword down just so I can demonstrate the body mechanics without anything in hand, so we're going to really focus on what the body is doing. The Stoccata can be performed with the hand in terza position, or in quarta position, or in seconda position. It depends on the particular situation when you're actually launching the attack, which one you're going to use. I'm going to demonstrate the core mechanics starting in terza guardia, so that's the third guard position with the hand in third position. But the same mechanic is applicable to the other guard stances as well. Let's get started. Here is terza guardia. So the close range attack first of all, so without any footwork. We've got our weight on the back leg. We're holding a little bit of tension in the vita, and the sword hand is held lightly extended but in a relaxed fashion. So what I'm going to do is push with this rear thigh. I'm going to advance my sword hand to push the weapon towards the target, and I'm going to expand my body forwards at the same time. So push, advance, expand. And we end up in this stance. So note the knee is angled forwards over the toes. And to recover, you can just reverse the motion. So the key points to note about this are, firstly, it's a whole body movement. We're starting it here. We're controlling the weapon with our hand and our arm, but this whole chain of muscles here, and obviously across the back as well, should all be engaged in the movement. Remember, this is a big, heavy sword. The blades are well over 1 meter long, and they usually weigh around 1.3 kilograms. That's quite a lot of steel. In order to keep it under control and to make our attacks accurate and efficient, we need to engage all of these muscles in the movement. So that's the first and most important aspect to remember about the movement. Second thing is keep your weight down. It's quite a low driving attack, so you want to avoid pushing up with the back leg like this, where your weight is kind of traveling in an arc and then landing on the front foot or the front leg. Rather, we want to try and keep as close to a level line as possible, like so. So we're driving forwards into the target. The The left hand is just used to counterbalance whatever's happening with the rest of the body. So this is the stoccata, the basic thrust, performed at misura stretta, narrow measure. Okay, it is a pied fermo attack, a firm-footed attack, because the feet are gripping the ground more or less tightly, and there's no footwork. Okay, there is a lean forwards of the torso and a forwards movement of the vita, but the feet are not moving. If you are at misura larga, that's wide measure, so you're launching a long range thrust, you just do exactly the same thing, but as your body is transitioning forwards, you're going to move the front foot directly towards the target by approximately 1 foot length. You're going to do it by raising the foot slightly from the ground and then moving it forwards, landing on the heel and rolling onto the rest of the foot. Looks like this. Again. Okay, so remember, keep the weight down, drive forwards. I'm not stamping onto the front foot, I'm rolling onto it so that my weight is not creating a big shock, a big impact on my knee or my ankle, but it's kind of gently rolling on top so that those hinge joints can absorb the force in a safe and efficient way. So when you're practicing this at home, I recommend start without the weapon and do it slowly. Extend, drive, shuffle the foot forwards. And when you get confident in your posture and your body mechanics, pick up the speed. And then the last step is, of course, to add in the sword. So I'll demonstrate the two variations of the stoccata, sword in hand. I'm going to be facing this direction. So I'm on guard, in this case in terza guardia, so firm-footed, narrow measure attack, like so. And then an extended wide measure attack with the advance of the front foot, the passo straordinari, the extended step. Note at the end point of the attack, because my body is leaning forwards, the hilt and quillons of my sword are helping to protect my sword arm, my lead shoulder, and my head. So they're providing coverage, a little bit like a small shield attached to the sword, if you like. So the complex hilt is really necessary for fencing in this style. Okay, so there you have it. That's the stoccata attack. Remember that you should only ever launch this attack at your opponent if you have first gained their sword. Guadagnare la spada, also known as stringere within Capoferro's system. If you're not sure about that, take a look at the earlier video in the sequence where I describe preparing to attack and gaining the sword. The last thing I'll say today is that the stoccata can also be used as a form of defense because Capoferro is a big fan of contratempo or counter-time defenses. In other words, you defend yourself by attacking into your opponent's attack. So essentially what this means is when your opponent makes some movement, whether it's a thrust or a cut or some other move like a beat or a change of guard stance, you interrupt his attack by launching a quick stoccata. And as you do so, you're going to angle the quillons of your sword and the true edge of your blade towards wherever the opponent's sword is. So if your opponent throws in a wild attack on your inside line, you're simply going to push your hilt towards his sword and extend the tip forwards into the stoccata. If he's stacking over here, you'll do the same with seconda. Like so. If he was attacking low down here for some reason, it would look like this, and so on and so forth. And the counter time stoccata could be a narrow measure one or a wide measure one, depending on how far away or how close your opponent is. So there we go. Actually, just one more thing I'll add, that the counter time stoccata, it can be used to interrupt an opponent's cavazione, or freeing of the sword. So one of the common interplays between the weapons that we see within this style is that one person will advance forwards to gain the opponent's blade. Maybe they take a step and change into quarta Aguardia, for example. This provokes the opponent to perform a cavazione to free their blade. If their cavazione is a little bit clumsy, a little bit too slow, or a little bit too big, then we simply turn our hilt towards their blade and interrupt their disengagement, their freeing of the sword, with the counter time stoccata. So within this one technique, we have the main attack of the system, but also really one of the main defenses as well. That's all for today. That's quite a lot of information which I've delivered quite quickly. I hope it makes sense to you. Do try to build it up slowly. Start off without a sword in your hand. Perform the firm-footed version until you get the feel of using your whole body to expand into the attack without any footwork. Then add in the passo straordinari, the extended step, in order to make the attack even wider. And then once you're happy with that, pick up a sword and repeat the firm-footed close-range attack with a sword in hand, and then the wide measure attack with the extended step. And then you will have a good core repertoire to begin further study of Capoferro's system. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you found that interesting as always, and I will be back soon with the next video in the series. Until then, take care everyone. See you next time.